Hello everyone, and welcome to the Anatomy of Knitting, episode 46. My name is Erin, and I'm going to be your host. Today is, oh goodness, I think it's the 4th? Yes, Monday, November 4th, 2013. It is hello Lola, a beautiful, beautiful sunny day here in Seattle. And it has been quite a long time since I last podcasted. I think I last podcasted in February. I think, or maybe March, I can't remember. And it's been quite a long time. Having two babies will do that to you. I apologize, but you know, that's kind of what happens. Lola, I'm going to put you down, okay? Thank you. I have got a stack of stuff to talk to you about. And I think we'll just dive right into it and get started. So first off, I kind of wanted to talk about changes that were going to be happening to not only the podcast, but to myself and my family. The first one being that the topics of the podcast are probably going to change a little bit. Since I've last talked to you, I've kind of gotten involved in a couple of other crafts, sewing and quilting. And I'd really like to include segments about those in the podcast, because I'm spending a decent amount of time crafting those crafts. So I'd kind of like to share with you what I'm doing. And I understand that not everybody wants those segments. So I'll put those at the end, just in case you just want to watch the knitting stuff. You don't have to watch the other segments. And you can just stop the podcast after the knitting and be happy. So so look for those new segments. And then let's see, the changes that are coming to me personally are the fact that my husband and I and our boys will be making quite a big move. He's accepted a position in Cork, Ireland, and so around the new year, we're not exactly sure yet because of immigration stuff when that's going to happen, but in January probably sometime we will be making that big move. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, and there's going to be a lot of work, and I'm not exactly sure how we're going to handle that with two. At that point, they'll be year-old boys who might be walking. We'll see. It's going to be crazy. So those are the big changes that are going to be happening, and so let's dive into the big crafting segments. So let's get started. So the first segment is off the needles, and there's a fairly decent amount of stuff that I'd like to talk to you about. I have two pairs of socks that are off the needles. The first ones are the Sweet Georgia Yarns Hydrangea socks. There we go. Oh, you might hear some ambient baby noise. I've got they're napping, or I just put them down for a nap. So you might hear ambient noises. This is the Sweet Georgia yarn. This is not her superwash sock. This is just, I think, just her sock in the hydrangea colorway. This was like a super ancient skein of yarn that I had, and I decided to dig it out of the stash and knit some socks when we were in the thick of early babiness. This is my usual 1x1 rib for about an inch or so. Cuff until I get bored of it. That's usually about 4 or 5 inches. Slip stitch heel, the gusset, and then, you know, the stockinette foot and regular wedge toe. Same old. I like the old stockinette socks. So there's that pair. And then after I finished those, I decided to cast on with another fairly vintage skein of Sweet Georgia yarns. This is her Angel colorway, based on the TV show Angel, I believe. Same thing, 1 inch of 1x1 ribbing, stockinette cuff, slip stitch heel, gusset, stockinette foot, wedge toe. 2 socks. So there's those two. So that's 2 nice pairs of socks all done. And let's see. I've got my... So I'm kind of out of practice. You might also hear Kat because I banished her. So you might remember the last time I podcasted, I was knitting on the Ho Aloha, which was a mystery knit along from Mel of the Single Handed Knits podcast. So I ended up getting to the hip area where you kind of split and do the textured stitches. I tried it on at that point, and it was too small in the hips because I'm a little bit hippie. So I ended up ripping the whole thing out, and I wasn't super in love with the pattern. I just don't think it would have been flattering for my body type. You know, I've seen finished objects, they look amazing on other people, but it's just not for me. Not for us bottom-heavy people. So I used the same yarn, which I believe was the Zenith Dive, whatever. And I cast it on for Chick Knits Twist Cardigan, and ended up finishing that. Let me just show you the back. The cables are easier to see on the back. Like so. I have yet to block it or do anything other than just finish it. Let me see if I can try it on for you. It's really, I love the yarn. It's nice and soft. And I keep getting stuck on the hood, I think. Oh, my goodness. This is what happens when I record live. There we go. Alrighty. So I need to block it. And so you can see the awesome cable there, and then there's the hood. I'm very much into hoods right now. And so this will get blocked, and then I need to find buttons, and then I've got a ribbon that'll look really cool on the backhand side to anchor the buttons. So that's the, if you can see the back. There we go. That's the twist cardigan. It's a super easy pattern. I think I was able to memorize the cable after a bit. Oh, and I knit the entire body in one piece. So you see there's no seam there. And then so I cast on for the sleeves. I knit the sleeve without a seam either. And then just sewed it in. So that is the twist cardigan. Super comfy. Needs to be blocked. Let me find a good spot to put the stuff I've finished showing you. And then after that, I decided to, it was when my husband had originally taken a business trip to Cork to see if he could, work with people there, see if he was a good fit. So while he was gone, I was like, oh, I need to knit a really awesome big sweater that I can cuddle up in when we've moved over there. That's very Irish looking. So I looked through several of my books, and I found in the More Big Girl Knits the Susie hoodie, which is this, it's mostly stockinette stitch knit on the bias, and let's see, it also has a nice Celtic looking cable on it as well. So I cast on for that, I think in around June-ish while he was gone, and then have been knitting on it since. There's a cat trying to get in. I do most of my knitting at night after the babies have gone to bed, so I only get about 2 or 3 hours a day where I can really focus on my knitting, and most of the time it's not a complete 2 or 3 hours of knitting. I'll surf the internet and I'm watching TV with my husband, so progress is usually slow. It's basically what I'm trying to boil everything down to. So I decided to use this Cornish Eco Pure Manx Loughton Aran yarn for the Susie hoodie. And then this is that yarn that my parents, when they went to England, found for me. So there's that. So I cast on and eventually finished the Susie hoodie. Now this is a, so you'll see how, let me get the back. You'll see how it's kind of knit on the bias in the back. That's the really good place where you can see it. And then it kind of ends in a point, like so. Here's that really cool cable that you can see. It goes all the way down the front and then over the hood and then down the other side. And so you knit this from the bottom up and then you end up grafting the hood at the end. And I think I did a decent job of grafting. This was the first time I had done grafting of a cable where it's, you know, the grafting here on the stockinette portion I can do with my eyes closed, but the part where you graft knits and purls I'm not super great at. So I think I did a pretty decent job. I don't think anybody's going to be looking at this and going, oh, your cable, you did this wrong. Nobody's going to care. And it's good enough for me. So there's that. Yeah. And so the seam is right there-ish. So you can't, it's right under that little cable cross. You can see it more here. Yeah, so that's the Susie hoodie. The yarns, oh, and there's cables around the sleeve part. You end up knitting this, whoosh, and then picking up and knitting here. Let's see, what have I not told you about this? The yarn's a little rustic, I'll say. So this is definitely going to be a layering piece. And I think I need to find like a little frog closure to kind of put here. There's no buttons or anything for this cardigan, so it's meant to be worn open. But I think I'd just like something here to kind of keep at least the top closed. So there's that, and that is everything that I have finished since I last spoke to you. Not a whole heck of a lot, per my previous volume of knitting, but a pretty decent amount for the amount of time that I get to knit per day. So yeah, I think that's it for stuff that's off the needles. And so now we'll talk about the things that are on the needles. So I'm going to start off what's on the needles by showing you something that I forgot to show you in what's off the needles. So after I finished the Susie hoodie, I decided to use one of the skeins of yarn that I have purchased in Alaska when I went on an Alaskan cruise with my husband. This is a skein of yarn that is cashmere, silk, and Kiviot, so it was very expensive. And I decided to knit the Beverly Lace Smoke Ring, which is a free pattern you can find on Ravelry. It links to the same people who make the yarn, and it's in this lovely green colorway. This too needs to be blocked. I've been kind of slacking on the blocking department, so it doesn't look super great, but it looks pretty decent. So it starts out with seed stitch, and then some stockinette, and then this lace here. And then you do knitting and knit two together yarn overs. You're supposed to do it 5 times total, but after I finished the 5 times total, I looked at my ball of yarn and there was a ton of yarn left. So since this skein was really expensive, I decided that I needed to make it longer. So that's what I did. And I actually probably had enough yarn left over after I finished the smoke ring to do another repeat of the stockinette yarn over knit 2 togethers, but I decided not to rip back. So you can wear it like a cowl. It's quite warm and I love the way it kind of bunches up. Or you can wear it like so, like a little hood. And I figured this would come in handy in Ireland. It's supposed to be cold and wet like it is here, but I think a little bit more so. So, yeah, there it is. So, that's my other thing that's been off the needles that I forgot to tell you about. So that needs to go in the blocking pile as well. Okay, so I finished that. On the needles, I have another pair of stockinette socks, knit out of Witch's Brew in Blue Moon Fiber Arts Socks That Rock. I forgot that upstairs. You'll understand why when you saw the pile that I have there and then the pile that I have down here. Let's see. Yeah. Again, same old stockinette stock. I don't know how I can make those more exciting. So, yeah, there's that. And then after I finished the Susie cardigan, I figured I needed another big cozy cardigan to wear as a layering piece. So I've been trying to catch up on podcasts since I have a little more time during the day. There was a period of time where the babies only slept for about a half hour at a time, and they weren't able to quite put themselves to sleep yet. And so, speaking of sleep, I forgot to start their sleep timers. So I'm going to do that and talk to you at the same time. I hope you can understand. So yeah, they were sleeping for about a half hour at a time, and because they still needed my help to get to sleep, the process of getting both of them to sleep took 20 minutes, and so then I'd usually have about 10 minutes to, throw laundry, out of the machines and switch them and wash some dishes or unload the dishwasher, and it didn't give me any time for myself. That was just a seriously difficult time with the babies. That lasted a couple of months. I think about 8 or 9 weeks total, and I was so burned out by the end of that. Oh my goodness, that was just the worst period of time with these babies. I mean, they were happy and great, but it was just having no time for yourself when you're just a caregiver it's very difficult. Anyway, soapbox done. So because I'd been catching up on podcasts, I've been catching up with the Snappy Stitches podcast, and you might remember the Manic Pearl audio podcast that was hosted by Chrissy. She now does a video podcast, and she had an effortless cardigan, which I thought just looked super cozy and comfy, and so I decided that I should knit one. So I didn't print out the big picture, but see, it's like that big cozy. It's got these really long fronts that you can wear kind of draping open like that, or you can wear, folded over each other and then with a pin or something, like a shawl pin to close it. I intended to wear it open most of the time. And I'm knitting this using Madeline Tosh Vintage that I purchased. I ended up finishing in the middle of a row. Well, that's too bad. I ended up purchasing from So Much Yarn, which is a yarn store in downtown Seattle. My husband ended up giving me, for my birthday, he wanted to know what he could give me, and I said I would like a full night's of sleep. So he ended up getting me a hotel room for the night downtown, and so I ended up going to a yarn store there and buying this yarn. So this is the Madeline Tosh Vintage, and it's in the Brothers Grimm colorway. It's like green overdyed with black. You can kind of see a little bit of green. I'm alternating skeins, so there's a lot of stuff hanging from the sweater so far, because a lot of the skeins are really different. So I figured alternating them would kind of blend that a little bit. So I haven't gotten too much done. It's knit from the top down. There's sleeves. Let's see. If I can... There. That's how much I've gotten done. Not much at all. And again, it's kind of the same problem. Only a few hours at night, and then some nights I don't feel like knitting. So those are being knit on US 8s. They call for US 9s, but with the yarn that I'm using, the drape, the gauge I got was too large, and then the drape just seemed really open. It was just too open. I didn't really like it. So that's what's it for on the needles. I don't have a ton of things on the needles anymore because I've become pretty monogamous now that I don't have much time. So that's everything that's knitting concerned. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, everything that else I have to talk about is not knitting. So if you're gonna leave now, thanks for watching, and then if you want to continue watching to see what I've been crafting, I look forward to seeing you. So have a good week if you're leaving, and for those that are staying, let's move on. So the next segment I'm calling Quilt as Desired, because every quilt pattern that I've read so far ends up saying that at the end. Quilt as Desired, which is sometimes frustrating, especially for me. So I started out taking a sewing class, I want to say it was in March. No, it was in April, because I wanted to make some Halloween costumes for my family, and I had no idea how to sew, how to use a sewing machine, so I ended up taking a class. There's a chain of stores around here called Quality Sewing and Vacuum, and during the class we learned how to, we made a reversible tote bag, we made a zippered pouch, which mine is sitting right here. My zippered pouch. We made quilted placemats, and then we made a pillow. Those were the 4 projects. It was a 4-week class. And I fell in love with sewing because the projects that you can make can just be super quick. You know, with knitting, you knit a big sweater that's going to take me, like the Susie hoodie took me, I think, 3 months. I started that in June, I think. No, maybe it took me 4 months. It took me a long time. So I have really just fallen in love with sewing. Sewing's my daytime during the nap time activity. And then since we've also moved where my sewing machine is, it's not as loud for the babies. They used to wake up a little bit more often, but now I get to make as much noise as I have, like caviar or something on my lip gloss. Okay. So after I finished taking the sewing class, you know, I didn't have a super, you know, because I'm breastfeeding the boys still, you know, I don't have a super amount of time that I can take off in the evenings. It has to be prearranged, you know. I ended up joining the Modern Quilt Guild. That's a monthly meeting, so that's usually about what I can get off in the evenings. Yes, whatever. So it's hard for me to take classes, and there's a lot of classes during the day as well, which is just not optional. So I discovered Craftsy, and have taken like a gazillion classes, and I cannot say how valuable Craftsy has been to me. You know, being a stay-at-home mom now, it's such the valuable resource. I totally recommend that you all check it out. There's knitting classes, there's cooking classes, there's sewing classes, there's quilting classes, there's all sorts of classes. There's painting classes, photography classes, cake decorating class. I mean, there's just so many different types of classes. And I'm going to say 99% of them are like amazing. There's been a few that I've taken that are, but still have great information. But, 99% of them have been amazing. So the first class I took was taught by Camille Ross Kelly, and it was pre-cut piecing made simple. That's what it was. Pre-cut piecing made simple. And I ended up making this quilt. It's folded in half. It's almost, I think, a twin size. And it's called the hashtag quilt. And it's made by a Jelly Roll, which is, a Jelly Roll is a line of fabrics that's created. It's one piece of each of the fabric in the line. There's usually about 42, and it's the length of the width of fabric, which is about 45 inches by 2.5 inches. So I didn't have to cut these short lengths. I just cut the long parts of that. So it's just a hashtag, and then it's got some patterned white fabric in the background, which you can't see the little pattern on it, but it's little diamonds, kind of like this. So this is living on my couch. I'm going to just flip it over so you can see the other side. And then there's a nice ombre fabric on the back, and you can see my really awful attempt at quilting. It's totally and completely awful. I'm still getting the hang of it, because now that I'm not making any money because I don't have a job, I am trying to do all the quilting myself, and I just have this little domestic sewing machine. So quilting big quilts like this can be a bit of a challenge. So that's the first quilt that I made. And again, that was in the class Pre-Cut Piecing Made Simple by Camille Ross Kelly. And that's the hashtag quilt because of the hashes. So that's quilt number 1. And then I have discovered a bunch of quilt blogs, just like knitting. There's a bunch of quilt blogs like there's a bunch of knitting blogs. So then I found another pattern that I thought was really cool. It's called the Bell Wave Quilt. And let's see. What's the best way to hold this? This is more of a lap quilt. Whew, goodness. Here we go. So it's just these kind of like arrow bits, and they kind of go up and down across the quilt. Let me just back up. Okay. I'm just gonna back up. Here we go. Alright. So, there's the quilt. I only ended up doing the quilting in the black portions. Still just straight line quilting using a walking foot. A walking foot is a foot for the sewing machine that has feed dogs on the top, so the whole quilt sandwich is moved at the same time. Usually with a sewing machine it's just the bottom that's moving instead of both sides. Anyway, so that's that. This is using a fat quarter bundle of Kona cotton solids, and a fat quarter is a piece of fabric. It's a 1/4 yard, but instead of being 9 inches by the width of fabric, it's 18 inches by 21 inches. So it's a little bit more useful piece of fabric instead of the 9 inches by 44, but it's still a 1/4 yard. And then the other cool thing about this is that it was my first attempts at free motion quilting. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back forward. There we go. And you can see on the back, I just used a regular blue fabric to kind of match that color. So I kind of made these square spirals. And then you can also see the quilting from the back too. I thought that was kind of neat. So that's that quilt. That's all finished. Ugh. Getting very warm in here because I've got all these lovely quilts. And I've been wanting to use wool batting because, you know, wool. I heart it. But I haven't been able to find a good resource for wool batting yet. So that's quilt number 2. Quilt number 3 is a baby quilt that I made for a former coworker. These are going to be the colors in her nursery. And usually making chevrons like this, you use what's called half square triangles, which is, you know, in quilting there are blocks. And this one half square triangle block is a square made up by 2 triangles. Whatever. Half square triangles. But I've been kind of nervous to try those because you have to be a bit precise, and I'm still working on my precision. So this uses rectangles. So you can see, like there is the rectangle. There's another rectangle. So that's that block. So I sewed, used a charm, or I could have used a charm pack, but I couldn't find these colors that I wanted. So I ended up getting yardage and cutting out 5 by 5 inches square pieces of fabric, and then sewed those 2 pieces together, and then cut them. So, yeah, cut them in half. There's a tutorial online, which I can link to. So then I sewed all of these in rows, and you can see the rows. Which way did they go? Yeah, so the rows are here. There's one row. There's the second row. There's the third row, and then on and on and on. And then I ended up quilting this one by just doing about 1/4 inch from the seam line. So that one was quilted pretty simply. So that's, and then I just used a gray polka dot on the back. So you can't really see the quilting from there. I mean, I can see it because I'm right next to it, but. So that's quilt number 3. But wait, there is more. I have to put a quilt label on this, and I'm thinking about using the embroidery machine or doing a monogram. The baby that I made this for, they don't know the sex, and so they don't have a name. So that kind of leaves me kind of a little bit of a lurch when I want to personalize it. But I'll make it work. So that's quilt number 3. And then literally last night, I finished quilt number 4. Halloween quilt for my boys. I wanted to get this done by Halloween so they could, you know, crawl all over it in their Halloween costumes, but I didn't get it finished. This was what's called a layer cake, which is 10 by 10 inches pieces of fabric. And again, usually it's 42 different designs in the line, but because this was a Halloween fabric, they only had, I want to say it was like 32 different pieces of fabric, so there were some repeats. And then this is another pattern that was done by Camille Ross Kelly, and her pre-cut piecing made simple. This is her piece of cake 2 quilt pattern. So I ended up getting the quilt top done a while ago, and then I've just been dragging my feet about actually quilting it again because I'm being cheap and needing to use my machine, and it's hard to wrangle this much fabric. Let me back up again. This much fabric through a little sewing machine. Like so the camera's set up right in front of the sewing machine, and I kid you not, the throat that I have is that big. So it makes it a little challenging. Here's the backing fabric I chose. Nice, fun, Halloween-y. And then I chose to quilt this by using overlapping, I guess, square meander. You can't really see it very well because of the fabrics. Let's see if I can show it to you on see the candy corn where it's white. I'll be able to see it a little bit better. And then the thing that was different about this compared to the other quilts that I finished is that I machine bound it. You'll see that with these, I ended up sewing the binding by hand, so you can't see any stitches on either side. The way you do the binding is you sew. So it's a 2.5 inch piece of fabric that I used. You fold that 2.5. Is it 2.5? Oh my goodness. I think it is. Anyway, I'll just say go check out Doing Binding online. But after you sew it to one side and then you fold it over to the other side and you hand sew it down. Yeah, so I hand sewed it on the back. You can kind of occasionally see it, but not all that much. With this one, I machine sewed both, the binding down, so you can see stitching on top of it. It's quick. It's super quick. I like that, but I kind of like the invisibility of the other one. So that's the last quilt that I have finished. There we go. Fold this one up. Ugh. So those are all the quilts that I finished. I've got a couple in progress. I want to make 2 baby quilts for the boys for their first birthday / Christmas, which is their birthday. Let me get this folded up. There we go. There's all sorts of fun fabrics in here. There's these cats and spider webs, and there's orange spider webs, and spiders, and candy corn, owls, all sorts of fun Halloween fabrics. So what I'm working on now, and pardon me while I reach out of reach, is Halloween quilts for the boys. So I finished one quilt top, and so quilts are constructed. There's a quilt top, there's batting, which is cotton or wool or whatever, and then a piece of backing fabric, so it's like a sandwich. So this is just the quilt top, and I'm doing sock monkeys. So there's bananas and sock monkeys and polka dots, and it's just plain white fabric. And this was a quilt kit that I had bought at a quilt show that I went to. It's the other night that I got off from the babies. There was a quilt show in Tacoma, so I ended up going there and finding this quilt kit and then the next quilt kit that I'm going to show you. So I just purchased some backing fabric. It ended up being this fabric here. And then I think I'm just going to do like a meander for the quilting. And I'm looking forward to trying to quilt this in the machine because it's so much smaller than what I've done. So we'll see how it goes. And this is going to go to Malcolm because when he gets tired at night and it's dinner time, and so we're all sitting down at the dinner table, he has a tendency to make these noises like a monkey, and I don't want to make it really loud, but he goes, ah, 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 ah. So he's very much our monkey. So he gets the sock monkey blanket. Somebody was making noises. And then the other blanket that the other quilt that I'm going to make, I'm sorry for all the crinkling, is going to be this one. There's crabs. It's very cute. And it's got all these fabrics here. So a chevron, crabs, kind of a plaid. And then there's going to be appliqued crabs that I can do on top if I want. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see if I'm brave enough to try it. Yeah, so that's the second one. I'm going to cut this today. I don't think I'll get started on it today, but at least I'll cut it. Or at least cut some of it during the next nap time. And I think that is all quilting-wise. So, two things happened at the same time, which is why there's an abrupt cut. One, the babies woke up, and two, the battery ran out on the little video camera. So, here we are a few hours later. Babies had lunch, and I had lunch, and then we played for a little bit. Daylight savings time happened over the weekend, so that's kind of screwed them up a little bit. I'm trying to get them back on their 11 and 3 o'clock nap times. I'm struggling. We're about half hour away from getting those sleep times, so hopefully in the next couple of days we'll get there. Anywho, I was about to talk about my sewing, and I meant to grab the Halloween costumes that I made the boys from their closet before I put them down, but I forgot. Bad podcaster. So the Halloween costumes that we did, and I'm going to put the picture-in-picture thing. I don't know which side it's going to work best on, so there we go. So we did the Wizard of Oz. Oh gosh, it's Lola again. So I had this brainstorm while I was feeding the boys in the middle of the night, probably about in January or early February. And I was like, well, what costume group can 3 boys and 1 girl do? And I figured, well, the Wizard of Oz is 3 boys and 1 girl, so why don't we do that? So I ended up being Dorothy, obviously, complete with ruby slippers. I grew up loving the Wizard of Oz and always wanted my own pair of ruby slippers, but could never really justify getting a pair until now. So I got the ruby slippers, and then I made my own costume. Simplicity offers, or I guess they contract with whoever owns the Wizard of Oz. I think it's MGM. All those MGMs. Who knows? Whoever owns the rights to the Wizard of Oz, Simplicity licenses it, and they're able to put out Halloween costumes, or sewing patterns for Halloween costumes. So I bought the pattern for the Dorothy costume, and then they also do toddler costumes for the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and then it also includes Dorothy and the Witch, but I didn't need those two. So I ended up making the Tin Man costume and the Scarecrow costume for the boys. I sewed the half size. It was my first time really following any sort of sewing pattern. And I started the costumes while my mom was here, and my mom has a decent amount of sewing experience. And so she was able to walk me through the first costume that I made, which was the Scarecrow costume, and it was pretty basic. Shirt, pants, and like a hood thing. Let's see. A funny thing that I did is I had originally purchased brown fabric for the pants and green for the shirt, like the pattern envelope had. However, when I was ironing them, my mom took the green from me, and then she didn't ask me what was for what, and I didn't tell her what was for what because I didn't think of it. And so she put the pants pattern pieces on, and pinned them down, and then I cut out the pants on the green. So we had to then make a trip to the fabric store to either find a replacement green fabric or something that would work for the shirt. So what we ended up finding was this red and white, kind of like a gingham, that I ended up using for the shirt. I thought it turned out really, really cute. And again, I'll do the picture-in-picture thing, so hopefully you're seeing it right now. I then got some lightweight, I think they called it tissue lame for the Tin Man costume, and that was interesting to work with. You know, I tend to bite off a little more than I can chew with anything, really. The lame was really slippery to work, you know, with, yes, that was a little bit challenging. And then I couldn't iron directly on it because of the way that the fabric is made. So, yeah, it was a learning experience. But it turned out great. The hood for that ended up being a little small. I wish I had made the size 1 instead of the half size, but, you know, oh well. Let's see. I spray painted a funnel. I didn't sand it. I should have sanded it before I did that. But I spray painted it. Lola, I'm going to put you down. Here, put you over there. Let's see. I think that's, so that's it with those costumes. Overall, working with the sewing patterns, it is pretty self-explanatory. If you're, oh my gosh, this cat. If you're pretty good about looking at a picture in like written instructions and figuring out what you need to do by doing that, then you should be able to follow along a sewing pattern fairly well. There were a few things that I didn't know about, like stay stitching. I didn't know what that was, but I had purchased a couple of Craftsy classes that ended up answering those types of questions before I needed to do those things. So that ended up being really good timing, actually. Yeah, so stay stitching is super easy, you know. It just was like, why would I sew like that? Anyway, let's see. I did the Dorothy costume, but an interesting thing that I had to do because of that was because I'm still breastfeeding the boys, my bust size is a little bit larger than it used to be. And so I am bigger than the pattern is designed for. So I purchased a Craftsy class that taught me how to upsize sewing patterns. And so I ended up doing that for my costume and then my husband's costume as well. He ended up being the Cowardly Lion. Unfortunately, there's no adult costume for the Cowardly Lion that's licensed by the Wizard of Oz, so I just kind of did a generic lion. And it was my first time working with fake fur, and the fur, the fur's length was about, you know, that long. So that was really interesting to have to work in my machine. But again, it turned out really great, and we ended up winning a costume contest at my husband's work for the boys. They won first place in the kids division. So yeah, that's it with the Halloween costumes, and I'm already starting to brainstorm what we're going to do next year, although I haven't quite come up with what we're going to do. I have to kind of see how they do things in Ireland. I've heard that Halloween isn't as big of a deal as it is here, so I don't know if I want to go all out and then just be that one family that went all out. But that might be fun. So I also have to see what kind of, where we're living and what kind of sewing stuff is available, i.e. fabric. Otherwise I'll have to bribe my mother to make a visit to Fabric Depot down in Portland and get me what I need. Right, Lola? Right. So that's about it with the sewing thing. I wanted to show you one more thing. Lola, I'm going to put you down. You all may not remember, but when I first was knitting for the boys, I ended up making some baby surprise jackets to be the going home outfits for the babies. They have since obviously outgrown them, so I ended up, Lola, I'm scooting this back, I don't want to run you over. I ended up putting these in a shadow box that I just purchased at, I think it was Joann's that I purchased it at. And I intended to get a big one so I could put a picture in there, but I'm okay with just the sweaters for right now. So these are all washed and archived, and I thought this was a really good way to save these and remember, how tiny the babies were, and what an exciting time that was in our lives. So that's that, and I think that's about it for the show. I am really glad I was able to podcast again. I'm going to stop recording and hopefully quickly edit this so I can post this before the babies wake up. Looks like I'm not going to be able to cut that fabric for that quilt today, so I'm going to probably end up doing it tomorrow. I can't promise how frequent I'm going to be with the recording. I'd like to do it once a month, but I'm not sure I'm going to have the volume of content. They may just be 5-10 minute episodes if I do that. We'll have to see. But I'll do my best to record on a more consistent schedule now. So, that's it. Lola, do you have anything to say? No, she says, I just want pets. I just want pets. Right? I just want pets, Mom. So I hope you all have a good week, and I hope your knitting's going very well, and I hope to see you in December. Woo! I can't believe it's going to be December next month. Ugh. Little boys will be a year old. So, I shall see you next time, and I'll talk to you later. Bye! Good morning! Good morning, babies. How are you? Good morning, Nathaniel. How did you sleep? Good morning, Malcolm. Good morning, babies. You ready to start the day? Yeah. All right. And Malcolm's ready. He says, I'm ready. You keep moving out of frame. Oh, we're standing up. Watch out. Oh, good job. All right, let's go get some breakfast.